All right, and welcome back to our series on Pathways from the School Gate. Part of our Ready to Launch series today, I've got a very special guest with me, Kaz from North Geelong Secondary. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks, Leigh. How are you?
Good. And I want to acknowledge that anytime I'm interviewing somebody who works in a school at this stage of the term, it's pretty brave of you to be getting up and doing this. Because I remember from teaching that the end of the term is pretty tough out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is, but we try and smile. And not going to lie, we are on the countdown to holidays that can't come quick enough because we all need that time to be able to actually rejuvenate, to be able to come back fighting the next term.
Absolutely agree. Hey, as a teacher, I suppose, and I'm a teacher by trade too, and I've kind of taken a whole different pathway from there. I want to probably start asking you some slightly different questions to what I've asked other people because you've got skin in the game. You're in the schools. What do you love about your job?
Dealing with young people and guiding them is the big one. It's definitely a partnership and that relationship building, and being able to celebrate with them their successes is a really exciting thing. And I like the fact that there's not one goal that suits every kid, that it's different. And that's what I really love about doing careers, is that it is definitely it's one of those ones I enjoy learning. So for me, I have to always keep up to date with what are the changes and what's happening. I love dealing with people, so I enjoy networking. I enjoy dealing with young people and their families and teachers and other people that support them. Um, so yeah, that's my big one, is being able to shape, guide, because we're not the only I can't speak today, it's clearly term three. We're not the only ones that know the knowledge, but it's important that we're helping to guide young people about where to find that information. So for example, if we disappear, how do they go about being resilient? How do they go about working out who they need to talk to, is a really important thing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I suppose people who work outside schools don't realise is we have the privilege of learning from students. We spend so much time learning from the students. And I kind of feel for other people who don't have that opportunity. I was talking to my son recently, who's an OT, and he said, I learn every single time I meet with a young person, and that's super exciting.
It is. It's really, really good.
Yeah, excellent. Hey, so you just woke up one day and wanted to be a teacher, or what happened along the way that got you to that pathway from when you left secondary school? Who were
Sure.
the people that helped you out? What happened? What was your journey?
So for me personally, I have a father who left school at the end of year 12, went into full-time employment, he was at Ford's in Geelong here for for his whole career. He was a person who went and did his bachelor's degree at 40. So I had that impact of an adult learning and going back to uni. My mum had been a kindergarten teacher and then focus shifted and she started doing special ed at the end of her career as well. So I guess teacher influence within a family side, I did have that on one side. I enjoy helping people. I was always that young person in high school that the teachers, if they had a new student, they'd buddy them with me and I'd help support them, and they may come into our friendship group or they may go to someone else's. So I guess that nurturing element's always been there for me personally. I had some pretty phenomenal high school teachers. I was a person who, I may appear confident now, but it's not something that comes naturally to me. And I was positive in my own headspace from year 10 that I was actually going to fail my VCE. So I was one that even back then I decided that I needed backup of backup plans. So I had a multitude of things that were spinning in my head about what my career was going to look like and the steps I would take. Because I was in this headspace of, well, I'm going to fail. I'm not going to be able to get to uni straight away if that was something I wanted to do. So what else could I do first? Was I going to start a business? Was I going to go to TAFE? Was I going to, if I did go to uni, what did that look like? What kind of career would that look like? So I was one that had explored a lot of different elements. And I was incredibly lucky that my parents were really supportive of doing that as well. So with that exploration process, we went to a lot of open days and I chatted with a lot of people. I guess in a way as well, for me, I did do a lot of work experience in high school too. So, and I was also someone who had worked from 12. So I'd had quite a few different jobs. So dealing with people was always a big thing. And then I decided, yep, teaching would be it. I went off and did phys ed and teaching for secondary. So I'm a phys ed health science teacher by trade originally. Not
I'm a
that I
phys
look
ed
like
teacher
that
by
now.
trade too.
It's often the people pleasing and people, you know, I think it really goes along with that too. So yeah, I went as that, and I am definitely not a stereotypical PE teacher. I am not that elite sports person or that, but my big one was always about encouraging people to be involved in being active. So that whole lifelong journey of that. When I was at uni, I did do different careers when I was there too, in regards to mentoring. I also did a bit of disability support work whilst I was there, and then I got my job here. So I've actually been at the same school for 16 years. And started off as a grad here. I did a bit of student management in between, and then I found out about careers, and I liked the fact that it was always really positive, because we were helping young people to take those steps to where they actually wanted to be long term. And it's a bit like solving a puzzle. There's not one way for each person, and I really enjoyed that element about it. Yeah, so it's definitely been diverse. I also run a business outside of school. So I now teach in the vet program here at school in beauty. And I do careers. I share that job for senior. So I do 10, 11 and 12 with our other career practitioner. We share that role. And I have done some junior careers in the past too.
So you're a real example of someone, it's not a straight line, but it's finding out as you want. I want to pick up on 2 points you said there.
Sure.
You talked about, following your passion and going into phys ed, because that was something that, healthy lifestyle, doing those sort of things really sort of resonated with you. But the other thing you talked about was finding out what you like.
Yes.
And can I get you just to talk a little bit about what students need to be starting to think about? Some people might have their passions, they might have their things they like, and I'm always fascinated with a couple of elite athletes who sit there and go, this is my job, but my passion is something else. That you don't have to work in your passion,
No.
but sometimes that can inform it too. So
Yeah,
can I
correct.
just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I guess the big thing, and this sort of is how I sort of approach career practitioning as well, is looking at what do I like and don't like doing? Is it more a hobby, or is it something that I want to do day in, day out? Because sometimes, as you said, Leigh, you need that balance between the two, of things you enjoy. Like sometimes if you do it too much, then it can become a chore, and you don't want that either. You want to be able to enjoy all elements as much as you physically can. I think it's incorrect to assume that you're going to love a job 100% of the time as well. Sometimes it can be a bit of a means to an end as well. But the big thing is about working out likes and dislikes, and the bits, working out what outweighs what when we're discovering that, because there will always be an element that will come, like an interchange as well, and interconnect. So for example, I know I like dealing with people. Lockdown was absolutely brutal for me. Doing online learning, absolute killer. Didn't enjoy that element. Put me in a face-to-face class with young people, fabulous. So it's working out, what does that look like? So I know I couldn't go and teach and do online teaching, for example, because that wouldn't align with what brings me satisfaction.
Yeah, I totally get that. Presenting online was really tough for me during lockdown. We're different people, different beings. All right. So you work in a school. There's lots and lots of people. I go into staff rooms on a regular basis, and there's lots of people there. In a school, if I was to come to you, or if I was starting to think about what's going to be my pathway after school, what are the positions in a school, and who are the teachers that I would go to? What positions would they be in?
Well, you can start simply as the classroom teachers you get along well with, because each person, like, yeah, I've had in a way a reasonably straightforward pathway, but not everyone else has. So it's looking at, maybe you have a connection with them and they can help to guide you and direct you to where you need to talk, or who you need to talk to. In each school, you will have a version of what I am as a career practitioner. Some schools have a lot of them, some don't. Like ours, we're in a really fortunate position. We have 3. So it allows students to sort of pick and choose who they connect with that. Other people it can be really important to talk to could be year level managers or house managers as well, because sometimes they're the people that unlock the key to being able to have a referral to the people that you need to talk to as well. Sometimes even assistant principals can be really key people with that, for guiding those conversations of who to connect with. If you're in a public school as well, sometimes it could be having conversations with a Head Start representative if you're in senior school, for example, and they may be networking you in. But realistically, any adult that is in a school should be able to guide you, if they don't know the answer straight away, to who you should be speaking with.
And it can be really nerve-wracking. Like, do you wait until the end of year 12 to start these conversations, or when do you start?
I think as soon as it starts to interest you is really important, because some people are really keen on this from year 7 and 8. We do have a careers program that builds out each year. In particular, our focus really is solid, in particular in year 9 and 10, and then onwards onto 11 and 12. But I think as soon as you're showing any form of interest in what life looks like outside of school, and that can be simply what you're doing after school as well. So whether that's part-time employment, volunteer work, being around clubs and things like that, whether it's sporting, church, other various groups, and that you may be a part of, is starting to have those conversations, because you'd be surprised how interconnected our world can be.
I noticed with my kids that part-time work was a really good way for them to rule out what they didn't want to do when they left school. My boys are very, very tall, and they tried hospitality, and it just didn't work for them. And I can remember them going, yeah, maybe that's not the pathway for us.
Yep.
So that's where part-time, you talked before about, you had opportunities with part-time work. So
yeah. And sometimes that can also be volunteer work. I think we can't limit that as being an option. I think volunteer work and community work can be really empowering, as well as working that out. Like, I know as a young person, I would volunteer when we'd have school productions, to see and experience different roles that people would take on within that. I volunteered on different community events as well, like a Relay for Life, or doing like tree planting and things like that, because you'd be surprised when you have a look at what adults and other young people are doing within those, in particular in the role of like a career type thing, working out what you like doing with that too.
yeah, I found when I first went into the workforce that the volunteer work I'd done was something in the interview sessions that people were very, very interested in here, and it gave me something to talk about. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think volunteering is really understated for young people.
And I think a lot of young people go, oh, well, I don't actually volunteer as such outside of school, but them putting their hand up for things like being on SRC, like Student Representative Council, helping on open days or open nights and evenings. We have a program here at school, it's called Be Bold, Be Heard, which is like a female empowerment program. Things like that, of being involved, even things like inter-school sport can be amazing with that, of putting your hand up, even if you're doing like being the team manager for the day. It doesn't have to be that you're the elite sports person or the sports person on the day. Like, there's so many other roles that can be taken on within that. And even things when you talk about within school, yes, voluntary work, but also experiences in general. So putting your hand up for leadership positions, even if you're not sure, can be a really good way to start, because sometimes we only grow when we're uncomfortable. Outdoor ed camps and being involved with that sort of stuff. We have a human powered vehicle program here that young people can opt in on. So there's so many different things that hopefully there'd be something that appeals.
Yeah. And I think we think that there's this formal, you've got to do training, but there's all these little micro steps. I think, I remember someone saying, oh, yeah, we all know that, it takes 120 hours of learner driver time to learn to drive. It takes about 157,000 hours to learn how to drive. My kids, the journey along the way as little children was well into, and that's what it's like for work too. So think about those things we can be doing after school. That's really important.
And sometimes it's about the other people, whether it's friends or other adults that you're associating with at the time, then go, gosh, you're really good at that. Have you thought of doing X, Y, and Z? Like, sometimes the hardest thing we can do as people is to be able to actually acknowledge what our strengths are. Yeah. So and what our skills are. Sometimes it's a lot easier for someone who knows us well to be like, hey, you're really good at that. Or do you know you can do this? Oh, thanks for helping me learn that new IT thing or whatever, that you may not have thought of it as a big deal, but for others it can be. And it's a skill set that is unique purely to you.
Yeah, learning what our special talent is, and it's not being able to play banjo. It's about, do we have empathy? Are we someone who likes to listen? Do we love doing group work? And we're all very, very different. Like, nobody ever comes to me and says, I come to you because you're really organised. That never happens. They come to me because they need someone who can make people laugh, and I'm okay with that being my special talent. That's fine. But just not organising. So knowing who we are, and I learn all that along the way with experiences. Absolutely. There's all those teachers with really specific jobs in school, and you did mention it before, but I just want to sort of, really highlight. It's hard when you're in year 7 and year 8 to know who those people are and be confident with them. So
Yes.
if you've kind of got a bit of an idea and it's kind of the careers person, is finding that one teacher in the school that you trust, that you can go to, because, your teacher's job is to help you find your way to the person who can help you. That's part of your role as a teacher.
Correct.
Is that still the way? Because it definitely was
Yes.
when I was teaching.
Yep, definitely is. It's about creating bonds and relationships that also can help you within that network. And sometimes it is working out, well, who do I get along well with? And like we're having that at the moment with young people doing their VTAC applications at the other end, so at the year 12 end, where they're doing their special entry scheme applications and they're having to have statements of support written. And who writes those the best? The teachers that know them the best.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it's about creating a relationship with someone you trust along that way is really, really important.
Yeah. And I always say, if you can put your hand up and name a person for each finger who you've got on your web of support at school, things are going well. So if you look at that now and you're looking at your hand and you can't think of at least one teacher on that hand, go and chat to your form teacher or someone and say, hey, I need to build that connection with that teacher at school. So,
Correct.
get some
Correct.
support with that. As far as formal nights or things that you have at school for careers, what are some of the opportunities that you've got?
Okay, so I guess it depends whether you're looking with parents being involved or separate to that as well. So we do a lot of communication via our newsletters and website in general. Like that's a really good starting point for families to look at. But things like your open evenings or open nights, in particular when students are starting to get into senior school, but also even open nights prior to a student or young person starting at that school can be really good to sort of start to get to know who's who. We also, for us, we run a huge careers week at year 10 where we start to really explore things in greater depth. When we talk about info sessions too, year level managers for us do a lot in regards to assemblies and that's a really good way for us to feed things out. We also, in regards to information and being able to get that out to young people, we use Compass, which is what our school uses as a student management system, but each school would use something slightly like that. So being able to even network into a Compass can be really good to be able to find out what information you need to gain or when opportunities come up. So for example, when we run a CI card or a white card training, the person involved with running that, she'll pop up onto our Compass so the parents are aware that it's something that's running. So that's where sometimes being able to actually regularly check that information can be really important as it comes through as well.
Yeah, and I think I do a lot of parent ed, and a lot of parents, we sort of say they get to the end of year 6 and then they step back a little bit. That as a secondary teacher, it's really important that it's a partnership. It's
Correct.
a family partnership the whole way, and we need parents to be reading the information and supporting their children to engage.
Correct.
It's just as critical at secondary.
Exactly.
All right,
Agreed.
we're just about there, but I'm going to give you a magic wand now, and we've talked about a few things, but if there's anything that I've missed, that if you had a magic wand that you really want to get out to young people and their families, to think about and consider when they're getting ready to launch and looking at their pathways from school. Have you got anything you want to add to it?
My big one is probably going in with an open mind. We all start somewhere. Sometimes it's at the start of at the start line. Others it's a little bit further behind, but it's actually starting and following through is a big thing. So, for example, if someone suggests, hey, you should look at work experience, don't just go, oh, well, I looked at one employer and they didn't take me. Well, I need to take some ownership about where I want to get to. So what do I need to do? Who do I need to see if I don't know how to take that first step? So a big thing about them actually being willing to explore and be open to being resilient as things come up is probably my big one. We try and explain that to young people as best as we can because no one knows what the future holds. So sometimes it's just about starting somewhere and taking little steps because everyone's steps are going to be different along the way.
Yeah, and I think there's this real sense sometimes for students that especially if I got my second choice. If you make your second choice your best effort, people get to see what you're capable of, and you're right. That resilience thing is that what does that look like when you're given an opportunity? And I think you brought up some fantastic points. And schools are really critical in this pathway from the school gate. And families, if you're not sure, can families contact you directly or ring the school and make sure
Definitely.
to meet with you to get
Yeah.
more information?
Yeah, for sure. They definitely do. We have ones that will contact us via email. We have ones that will contact us through the main office and be like, hey, I've got this question. And it may go to a year level manager or something first and then referred to us. Otherwise, they will contact us directly too. So it does happen. And we also have a lot of students actually contact us years after they're finished. Our alumni person also sits in our office, which can be a really handy contact for us to have. So I guess even when you're leaving school, looking at joining things like that can be really important, even if you don't necessarily engage with it all the time, but knowing it's an option there, because our network can be one of our greatest assets that we have. But yeah, we have a lot of young people that will contact us even years after they're finished to ask for some guidance or assistance along the way too, which we're happy to provide that, because it is career. It's not one thing you're going to do forever. And we'd be naive to think it was. Gone are those days where you're in one thing for the whole time. And also gone are the days, sadly, where, we potentially finish work at 50 or 55. We're going to be having a lifelong career, so we may as well enjoy it. So we may as well find what actually brings us happiness most of the time whilst we're in that work environment.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to give you a quick pop quiz to finish off with. You ready to go? Do you
I'm going to
prefer
try.
late nights or early mornings?
I'm a late night person.
Okay. Do you like really loud spaces or really quiet spaces?
Probably quiet.
Okay. Do you like group work or do you like working on your own?
Can I go in the middle?
You can.
I
You're
have
allowed
elements.
to do both.
Yeah, I'm a bit of both. I have elements where I show strength in both, so I'd probably say both.
Yep. Do you like working in environments where there's really strong smells, or would you prefer like candles and things like that? Or would you prefer to work where there's not so many strong smells in an office or a space?
I'm okay with strong smells as long as they're nice smells.
And it's individual. Like we've got certain shops that my partner loves going into and I stand outside because I know I'm going to sneeze in there. So
Yep.
and I ask these questions because I know as we grow, we start to build a bit of a passport about what we like and what we don't like. And we're still learning that about ourselves at our age.
Correct.
So, yeah, for young people, start to ask those questions and try things you haven't done before. And, that's how we build that picture of who we are and what we want to do when we grow up.
Correct.
Hey, Kaz, thanks heaps for your time today. I hope you've got something relaxing to look forward to for school holidays.
Do a lot of rest.
A lot of rest. A lot of rest and self-care, and I hope you get some really lovely warm weather to do that in.
Thank you. Thank you for interviewing me today, Leigh. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much for being part of this program. We really appreciate it too.
No worries. Have a great afternoon.
You too.